Cal Rourke wiped sawdust from his hands with the shop rag as the final bell rang through Plainfield Charter High School. The woodshop fell quiet except for the hum of the ventilation system pulling pine and oak particles from the air. Afternoon sunlight slanted through the tall windows, illuminating floating dust motes like tiny dancers. He'd been teaching here for 8 years, and the routine never changed. Clean the tools, sweep the floor, lock the cabinets. Check the safety equipment. Turn off the power to all machinery. The smell of fresh cut would always reminded him of his father's garage, where he'd learned to work with his hands as a boy. Those have been good times before his mother left, and everything changed. Now, teaching kids to create something meaningful with what felt like honoring that memory. His phone buzzed. Lena, Maggie's tooth is killing her. Can you meet us at Dr. Morrow's office in 20 minutes? Cal grabbed his jacket from the hook behind his desk. On my way. The drive to the dental clinic took 15 minutes through Grand Rapids traffic. Cal navigated the familiar streets, passing the coffee shop where he and Lena had their first date 12 years ago, the park where they'd gotten engaged, the small church where they'd married. Plainfield Charter Township wasn't large, but it held the history of their relationship in every corner. He found Lena's Honda in the parking lot, Maggie visible in the back seat with her hand pressed against her jaw. The sight of his daughter in pain made his chest tighten. He'd always been protective of Maggie, maybe overly so. She was small for her age, with delicate features that made her seem younger than 10. He knocked on the passenger window. How bad is it? He asked as Lena rolled down the window. She's been crying since lunch, Lena said. Her dark hair was pulled back in the ponytail she wore for work at the pediatric clinic across town. Dr. Morrow squeezed us in. Inside the waiting room, Maggie leaned against Cal's shoulder. At 10 years old, she was small for her age, but tough. She'd inherited Lena's olive skin and dark eyes, but her stubborn streak came straight from the Rourke side. Cal could see it in the way she set her jaw when determined, the same expression his brother Jasper had worn as a kid. The waiting room smelled of antiseptic and mint. Children's books were scattered across low tables, and a fish tank bubbled quietly in the corner. Maggie normally loved watching the tropical fish, but today she just pressed closer to Cal's side. It hurts, Dad, she whispered. Cal smoothed her hair, noting how it felt exactly like Lena's had when they first met. Soft and thick, with a slight wave that caught the light. Dr. Morrow will fix it. What if he has to pull it out? Then we'll deal with that too. But I bet it's just a small cavity. Nothing to worry about. Maggie looked up at him with those unusual eyes. Everyone always commented on them, not quite brown, not quite green, but somewhere in between. Cal had assumed they came from some distant Rourke relative, maybe his grandmother's side. The receptionist called them back. Dr. Leon Morrow met them in the hallway, his white coat crisp and professional. Cal had always liked the man. He was careful with Maggie, patient when she squirmed in the chair. His practice was well regarded in the community, and he'd been treating Maggie since she was 6. Let's take a look, Dr. Morrow said, leading them into the examination room. Cal noticed the dentist's hands weren't steady as he adjusted the overhead light. Dr. Morrow kept glancing at Lena, then away, like a man trying to avoid looking at something that made him uncomfortable. Sweat beaded on his forehead, despite the cool temperature in the room. His usually confident demeanor seemed strained. Everything all right, Dr. Morrow? Cal asked, genuine concern in his voice. Yes. Just a busy day. Lots of patients. But his voice carried a tremor that hadn't been there during previous visits. Open wide, sweetheart, Dr. Morrow said to Maggie, his professional mask sliding back into place. Cal watched from the corner as the dentist examined Maggie's molars. Lena stood on the opposite side of the chair, her arms crossed, checking her phone periodically. She seemed distracted, not really focused on their daughter's treatment. Small cavity in the back molar, Dr. Morrow announced after several minutes of examination. We can fill it today if you have time. Shouldn't take more than 30 minutes. Please, Lena said quickly, not looking up from her phone. She has school tomorrow. I don't want her missing class for another appointment. Dr. Morrow's hands trembled more noticeably as he prepared the numbing injection. The syringe clinked against the metal tray twice before he managed to pick it up properly. Cal stepped closer, concern growing. You sure you're okay, Doc? Your hands, fine, fine. Just tired. Long week. Dr. Morrow avoided Cal's eyes, focusing intently on the injection. This might pinch a little, Maggie. The procedure took 30 minutes. Maggie was brave, only gripping Cal's hand when the drill started. The high-pitched whine of the dental equipment filled the small room, punctuated by the suction device clearing saliva from Maggie's mouth. Dr. Morrow worked in tense silence, occasionally wiping his forehead with his sleeve. Cal found himself studying the man's face. Dr. Morrow was younger than Cal by a few years, maybe early 40s. African-American, well-educated, well-respected in the community. He drove a nice car, lived in a good neighborhood, belonged to the country club. Cal had never thought much about the dentist's personal life, but now he noticed things that seemed off. The way Dr. Morrow's jaw clenched when he looked at Lena. The careful distance he maintained from her side of the chair. Almost finished, Dr. Morrow murmured to Maggie, "You're being very brave." "She gets that from her father," Lena said suddenly, the first word she'd spoken since the procedure began. Doctor Morrow's hand faltered for just a moment. The drill slipped slightly, and he had to reposition it. Cal caught the small mistake, though Maggie didn't seem to notice. "All done," Dr. Morrow announced finally, helping Maggie sit up. "The numbness will wear off in an hour. No chewing on that side until tomorrow morning. And brush gently around the filling for the first few days." "Thank you," Maggie said politely, though her words were slightly slurred from the anesthetic. The reception desk. Lena handled the insurance paperwork while Cal helped Maggie with her jacket. The waiting room had filled with other patients, a mother with twin toddlers, an elderly man reading a magazine, a teenager texting on his phone. Dr. Morrow appeared beside Cal as he zipped up Maggie's coat. "Mr. Rourke," he said quietly, glancing around to make sure no one was listening. "Your coat pocket." Cal felt the dentist slip something small into his jacket pocket. When he looked up, Dr. Morrow had already turned away, walking quickly back toward the examination rooms. "Ready?" Lena asked, shouldering her purse. She seemed eager to leave, checking her watch and tapping her foot impatiently. Cal nodded, his hand instinctively moving to his pocket. Whatever Dr. Morrow had given him felt like a folded piece of paper, small and thin. Outside, Lena kissed Maggie's forehead gently, her demeanor shifting back to the caring mother Cal was used to seeing. "Feel better, baby. I'll see you at home in a couple hours." "Where are you going?" Cal asked, noting how she'd said a couple hours rather than her usual precision about timing. "I have to pick up supplies for tomorrow's patients at the pediatric clinic. Dr. Hendricks want me to get the new fluoride treatments before we run out completely. Then I need to stop by the pharmacy for Mrs. Chen's prescription." She spoke quickly, the words tumbling out in a way that seemed rehearsed. Cal studied her face. In 12 years of marriage, he'd learned to read Lena's tells. The slight tightness around her eyes when she was stressed. The way she touched her neck when she was uncertain about something. Right now, she seemed nervous, though he couldn't figure out why. "Can't that wait until tomorrow? I promised Dr. Hendricks. You know how he gets when things aren't ready." Lena was already walking toward her car, keys jingling in her hand. Besides, Maggie should rest anyway. The anesthetic makes her sleepy. Cal watched Lena drive away, her Honda disappearing into the evening traffic. Something felt off about the whole interaction, but he couldn't pinpoint what. Maybe it was just the stress of Maggie's dental work. Lena had always been protective, sometimes to the point of anxiety when it came to medical issues. He helped Maggie into his truck, adjusting the seatbelt around her small frame. During the ride home, she dozed against the window, exhausted from the dental work and the lingering effects of the anesthetic. Cal kept glancing at her in the rearview mirror, noting how peaceful she looked when she slept. Even with her mouth slightly open and her hair messed up, she was beautiful. Their house sat on a quiet street lined with mature maple trees. Cal had bought it right after he and Lena married, drawn to the large garage that he'd converted into a workshop in the good school district for future children. The neighborhood was working class but stable, filled with families who'd lived there for generations. That evening, after Maggie had gone to bed, Cal remembered the paper in his jacket pocket. He retrieved it from the closet and unfolded it at the kitchen table. The handwriting was hurried but legible. That child, she isn't yours. Ask for a paternity test. Keep this quiet for her sake, not Lena's. Cal read the note 3 times. His hands remained steady, but something cold settled in his stomach. He folded the paper and tucked it into his wallet, behind his driver's license where Lena would never look. Upstairs, he found Lena in their bedroom, scrolling through her phone. "How's Maggie?" she asked without looking up. "Sleeping. The numbness is wearing off." "Good." Lena set her phone on the nightstand. Dr. Morrow seemed nervous today. Cal studied her face. Did he? His hands were shaking. Maybe he's getting too old for the job. Cal pulled off his shirt and tossed it in the hamper. He's only in his 40s. People age differently. Lena turned away from him, pulling the covers up to her chin. "I'm exhausted. Can you turn off the light?" Cal lay in the dark beside his wife, listening to her breathing even out. The note in his wallet felt like a weight pressing against his chest. He stared at the ceiling until dawn crept through the blinds. Over the next week, Cal found himself watching with the patience and methodical approach his father had taught him. Not obviously, not in a way that would raise suspicions. But he noticed things he'd missed before, details that had been hiding in plain sight. The way Lena's phone buzzed at odd hours, during dinner, late at night, early in the morning before she was fully awake. How she developed a habit of taking calls in the bathroom with the water running, or stepping outside to the back porch when certain numbers appeared on her screen. The fact that she'd recently started carrying her purse everywhere, even to get the mail from the end of their driveway. Her stories about work became more elaborate but less consistent. She'd mentioned picking up supplies for Dr. Hendrick's pediatric clinic, but Cal knew from previous conversations that the clinic ordered supplies directly from their vendors. She talked about staying late for inventory, but her car was always in the driveway by her usual time. He began checking their shared bank account online during his lunch breaks at school. The statement showed regular deposits from Lena's job at the pediatric clinic, $1,800 every 2 weeks, like clockwork. But there were cash withdrawals he couldn't remember making. $50 here, $100 there. Small amounts that wouldn't normally catch his attention, but they were frequent. Almost daily, Cal kept a mental tally. In the past month alone, nearly $800 in cash withdrawals. When he asked Lena about it over dinner one night, she had ready explanations. "Grocery shopping," she said without missing a beat. "Gas for the car. I picked up lunch for the office staff twice last week when we were working late." But Cal did most of the grocery shopping. Their car had good gas mileage, and Lena had always been careful with money. The type of person who used credit cards for everything to track expenses on Thursday evening. While Lena helped Maggie with homework at the kitchen table, Cal logged into their online banking from his phone in the living room. He navigated through screens he'd never explored before. Looking for anything unusual, that's when he discovered the second checking account. IT was under Lena's name only, opened 6 months ago at a different branch of their bank. The balance showed recent deposits of $300, $500, $200. All cash, deposited on different days of the week. The total balance was approaching $4,000. "Dad, can you help me with this math problem?" Maggie called from the kitchen. Cal slipped his phone into his pocket and joined them at the table, his mind reeling from what he'd discovered. He helped Maggie work through long division while Lena sorted through mail, trying to appear normal while his world shifted beneath him. "Oh, this came for you," Lena said, handing him an envelope with casual indifference. Cal glanced at the return address. A credit card company he'd never done business with, Capital Financial Services. The envelope was thick, official looking. "I didn't apply for this," he said, tearing it open. Lena shrugged, not looking up from sorting bills. "Probably junk mail. They send those pre-approved offers to everyone these days. Just throw it away." But inside wasn't a pre-approved offer. It was a welcome packet for a new credit card account with a $5,000 limit, complete with a plastic card bearing his name and their address. An account that had been approved 2 weeks ago based on an application he'd never seen. "Lena," he said carefully, keeping his voice neutral. "Did you apply for this?" She looked up from the stack of bills, her expression genuinely puzzled. "Why would I do that?" We have plenty of credit cards already. The account was approved 2 weeks ago. Someone used my social security number and employment information. That's really weird. Lena's expression remained neutral, concerned but not panicked. Maybe someone stole your identity. You hear about that happening all the time. You should call them tomorrow and report it. Cal studied her face for any sign of deception. Lena met his gaze steadily, her dark eyes showing what appeared to be genuine concern. Yeah, he said finally. I'll call tomorrow. But as he looked at the credit card application details, he noticed something that made his stomach tighten. The application had been submitted online from their home IP address. At 2:30 p.m. on a Tuesday, a time when he was teaching and Maggie was at school. Only Lena had been home. That night, after Lena fell asleep, Cal searched through her dresser. He felt guilty going through her things, but Dr. Morrow's note had planted a seed of doubt that kept growing in the back of her underwear drawer. He found a manila envelope containing bank statements for the second account. The deposits went back 6 months. Always cash, never the same amount twice. Cal photographed the statements with his phone, then returned everything exactly as he'd found it. That on Saturday morning, Lena announced her plans over breakfast with the kind of casual enthusiasm that immediately put Cal on alert. I was thinking Maggie and I could visit Cousin Trish in El Paso next weekend, she said, buttering toast with deliberate care. She's been asking us to come see the new food truck business. She just bought this fancy equipment for making authentic Mexican street food. Cal looked up from his coffee, noting how Lena's voice carried a forced lightness. El Paso? That's a 15-hour drive. We could fly. Southwest has direct flights from Grand Rapids. It's really not that expensive if we book today. Lena had clearly done her research. Besides, it would only be a few days. Friday through Monday. School starts back up Monday after the weekend. She could miss 1 day. It's just elementary school, Cal. It's not like she's taken the SATs. Lena's tone sharpened slightly, revealing impatience beneath the cheerful facade. Maggie bounced in her chair, immediately excited by the prospect of adventure. Can we, Dad? Trish said in her last email that she'd teach me to make tamales. And she has this new puppy that's super cute. Cal forced a smile, not wanting to dampen Maggie's enthusiasm while his mind raced through the implications. El Paso was a border town, easy to cross into Mexico. If someone wanted to disappear with a child, it would be an ideal starting point. We'll see, he said, the phrase every parent used when they needed time to think. That's not really an answer, Lena said, her voice carrying an edge Cal had rarely heard before. Trish is expecting us. I already told her we'd probably come. You told her without asking me. I said probably. I didn't book anything yet. But Lena's defensive tone suggested she'd already made commitments beyond what she was admitting. After breakfast, while Lena showered and Maggie watched cartoons, Cal called his brother Jasper from the back porch. You busy today? Cal asked, keeping his voice low. Nothing that can't wait. You sound stressed. What's up? I need to talk to you. Away from the house. Can you meet me somewhere? Jasper's voice sharpened with concern. He'd served 2 tours in Afghanistan as a Marine and had developed instincts about when situations were turning dangerous. Everything okay with you and Lena? I'll explain when I see you. How about Murphy's Diner in an hour? I'll be there. They met at Murphy's Diner on the east side of town, a place that served decent coffee and minded its own business. Cal chose a booth in the back corner where they could talk without being overheard by the handful of other customers, mostly truck drivers and shift workers grabbing late breakfast. Jasper arrived wearing his work clothes from the sanitation department, his Marine Corps tattoo visible on his forearm. At 38, he was 4 years older than Cal and built like the linebacker he'd been in high school. His face had the weathered look of someone who'd seen combat, but his eyes were sharp and kind. You look like hell, Jasper said, sliding into the booth across from Cal. Cal had always been close to his older brother. After their mother left when Cal was 12, Jasper had helped their father raise him. He taught Cal how to fight, how to work with his hands, how to tell when someone was lying. If anyone would tell him the truth, it was Jasper. Cal pulled out his phone and showed Jasper the photographed bank statements from Lena's secret account. He'd been careful to crop out any identifying information that could get him in legal trouble for snooping. Lena has a secret account, Cal said quietly. Cash deposits for the past 6 months. Look at the pattern. Jasper studied the images with the same methodical attention he'd once used to scan for IEDs in Afghanistan. How much total? Almost $4,000. All cash deposits, never the same amount twice, never on the same day of the week. Where's it coming from? Cal told him about Dr. Morrow's note, the credit card application he'd never submitted, and Lena's sudden interest in visiting El Paso. He spoke in the same calm, measured tone their father had taught them both to use in crisis situations. Jasper leaned back in the booth, his expression growing more serious. You want my honest opinion? Always. Something's seriously wrong. The question is how wrong, and how dangerous. Jasper's military training had taught him to assess threats quickly and accurately. The pattern you're showing me looks like someone building an escape fund. Cal stared at his coffee, which had grown cold while he talked. There's something else. Something I've been afraid to think about too carefully. He told Jasper about the timeline that had been nagging at him since Dr. Morrow's note. How Maggie was born in January, but he'd been in Canada from March through May the previous year. How Lena had announced her pregnancy almost immediately after his return, claiming she was 3 months along. Jasper was quiet for a long time, doing the same math Cal had been avoiding. Finally, he spoke with the careful precision of someone delivering bad news. You were gone 3 months, he said. March through May, learning sustainable woodworking techniques in Toronto, right? Maggie was born January 15th. I remember, because I was there when you called from the hospital. Jasper's voice was gentle but relentless. That's 8 months after you got back. Not 9. Cal nodded, feeling sick. Not enough time if she got pregnant after I returned. Unless she was already pregnant when you came home. The words hung between them like a physical presence. Cal had done the math in his head dozens of times over the past week. But hearing Jasper say it made it undeniably real. What do you want to do? Jasper asked. I need to know for sure. Jasper reached for his phone. I know someone who can help. Discreet, reliable. Used to work at the state lab before he retired. Does private consulting now for lawyers and insurance companies. Can we trust him? With my life. His name's Tommy Chun. We served together before he got out and went to college. He's been running private DNA tests for 5 years. No questions asked, no records that can be subpoenaed. Jasper made the call while Cal stared out the diner window. A family walked past on the sidewalk, father and daughter holding hands while the mother pushed a stroller. The little girl skipped beside her father, completely trusting, completely secure in her world. The scene made Cal's chest tight with a mixture of love and fear. Tommy can run a paternity test, Jasper said, ending the call. All you need is a sample from Maggie. Hair with the root intact or saliva. Something with enough DNA to get a clear reading. How long for results? 3 days if he rushes it. He has his own lab set up in his basement. Used to do this kind of work for divorce attorneys who needed fast, discreet results. Cal thought about Maggie at home, probably watching cartoons in her pajamas while Lena did household chores. She trusted him completely, had always been Daddy's girl. The thought of deceiving her, even for her own protection, made him feel sick. What if the test confirms what Dr. Morrow said? Then you'll know the truth, and you can decide what to do with it. And if Lena finds out I tested Maggie? Jasper's expression hardened. Brother, if what you're telling me is true, Lena's been lying to you for 10 years and stealing money to fund some kind of escape plan. You're way past worrying about her feelings. Cal stared at his hands, noting the calluses and small scars from years of woodworking. Hands that had built Maggie's first treehouse, taught her to use basic tools, helped her with countless homework assignments. The thought that he might not be her biological father felt like a physical wound, but it didn't change the fact that he'd been her father in every way that mattered. Do it, he said finally. You sure? I need to know. If Lena's planning something, if there's any chance she might try to take Maggie away permanently. Cal's voice trailed off, but Jasper understood. All right, meet Tommy tomorrow afternoon. I'll text you the address. Jasper reached across the table and gripped Cal's shoulder. Whatever happens, we'll handle it. Family sticks together. What if I lose her, Jasper? What if the law says I have no rights because I'm not her biological father? You've been her dad for 10 years. You've fed her, clothed her, loved her, been there for every scraped knee and bad dream. That has to count for something. Cal wanted to believe that, but he'd heard enough stories about custody battles to know that biological relationships often trumped emotional ones in family court. That evening, Cal returned home to find Lena on the phone in their bedroom, speaking in rapid Spanish. She ended the call quickly when she heard him on the stairs. "Who was that?" he asked, trying to sound casual. "Cousin Trish, confirming our visit next weekend." Lena's Spanish had always been better than she let on. She'd grown up in a bilingual household, but rarely spoke Spanish around Cal or Maggie. "You booked the trip? I got us tickets on Southwest. Friday evening departure, Monday night return. I figured you'd say yes once you thought about it." Lena's tone carried a confidence that felt forced. "I haven't decided yet. Cal, it's just a weekend trip to see family. Maggie's excited, Trish is expecting us, and frankly, I need a break from this place." "What's wrong with this place?" "Nothing's wrong. I need some space. Some time to think." Lena turned away from him, busying herself with folding laundry. The last few months had been stressful with work and everything. Cal watched her fold clothes with mechanical precision. "Is there something you want to talk about? Something bothering you?" "No, just normal life stress. You know how it is." But Cal didn't know how it was. Lena had always been good at handling stress, organized and calm under pressure. This nervous energy was new, and it worried him more than he wanted to admit. Monday morning, Cal waited until Lena left for work before approaching Maggie's bathroom. She was brushing her teeth, getting ready for school. "Let me see those pearly whites," Cal said, making her giggle. While she rinsed, he carefully collected her toothbrush and placed it in a plastic bag. Jasper had explained that saliva residue would provide enough DNA for testing. "Dad, you're being weird," Maggie said, noticing him holding the toothbrush. "Just making sure you're doing a good job brushing," Cal said, replacing it with a new one from the medicine cabinet. "Can't have any more cavities." That afternoon, he met Jasper at a coffee shop downtown. His brother's contact, Tommy Chun, was a small Asian man in his 60s with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. "This is completely confidential," Tommy assured Cal. "No records, no paperwork trail. Just the truth." Cal handed over the sealed bag containing Maggie's toothbrush along with a saliva sample from himself. 3 days, Tommy said. "I'll call Jasper with the results." The wait was torture. Cal went through the motions of normal life, teaching his woodshop classes, helping Maggie with homework, making conversation with Lena at dinner. But every moment felt like acting in a play where he'd forgotten his lines. Wednesday evening, Jasper called. "Meet me at the shop," he said. "Now." Cal found Jasper waiting in the high school parking lot, leaning against his truck. Even in the fading light, Cal could read the answer in his brother's expression. 0%. Jasper said without preamble. "You're not her biological father." Cal leaned against his own truck, the metal cold through his shirt. He'd prepared himself for this possibility, but the reality hit harder than expected. "You okay?" Jasper asked. "No." Cal's voice was steady despite the chaos in his head. "But I will be." That night at dinner, Cal watched his wife with new eyes. Lena served spaghetti and talked about her day at the dental clinic, complaining about difficult patients and insurance paperwork. She seemed completely normal. "Remember when I was pregnant with Maggie?" Lena said suddenly. "You missed her first kicks because you were still in Canada." Cal's fork stopped halfway to his mouth. "What?" "The first time she kicked. You weren't there. I came back in May. You didn't tell me you were pregnant until June." Lena's eyes widened slightly. "I meant the really strong kicks. Later in the pregnancy." But Cal remembered that June evening clearly. Lena had made his favorite dinner and announced her pregnancy during dessert. She'd been barely showing, claiming she was 3 months along. "Right?" Cal said, returning to his spaghetti. The strong kicks. Maggie, oblivious to the undercurrent, chattered about her day at school. Cal listened and responded appropriately, but part of his mind was cataloging Lena's mistake. After Maggie went to bed, Lena curled up on the couch with her laptop. "What are you working on?" Cal asked. "Planning the El Paso trip. I found cheap flights for next weekend. I thought we were still discussing it." Lena looked up from the screen. "Maggie's excited. Trish is expecting us. It's short notice. Sometimes the best trips are spontaneous. Lena's smile didn't reach her eyes. Don't you trust me? The question felt loaded. Cal studied her face, looking for cracks in the facade. Of course I trust you, he said. You're my wife. Friday afternoon, Cal drove to Dr. Morrow's office without an appointment. The receptionist tried to turn him away, but Cal insisted it was urgent, a doctor. Morrow met him in an empty examination room, closing the door behind him. Mr. Rourke, I wasn't expecting you. We need to talk. Dr. Morrow sat heavily in his chair. Up close, Cal could see the man had lost weight. Dark circles shadowed his eyes. You wrote that note for a reason, Cal said. I need to know what. I shouldn't have involved you. But you did. Now, finish it. Dr. Morrow was quiet for a long moment, staring at his hands. Lena and I dated, he said finally, briefly, while you were in Canada. Cal felt something cold settle in his stomach. How briefly? 6 weeks. Maybe 2 months. Dr. Morrow looked up. She told me she was divorced. Said her husband had abandoned her and the marriage was over. But it wasn't. I found out when she announced her pregnancy. Suddenly, she was married again, happy, planning a future with her husband who'd just returned from his apprenticeship. Cal processed this information. She was pregnant when I came home. Yes. Is Maggie yours? Dr. Morrow's face crumpled. I don't know. She cut contact immediately after marrying you. Wouldn't return my calls. Acted like we'd never met. But you suspected. Maggie has my eyes. The same unusual green-brown color. It's not common. Cal thought about Maggie's eyes, which he'd always assumed came from some distant Rourke relative. There's something else, Dr. Morrow continued. Last year, Lena approached me about a billing issue. She wanted me to process fake invoices through my practice. What kind of invoices? Dental work that was never performed. She said her cousin needed help with some business expenses, something about medical write-offs for tax purposes. Did you do it? God help me, yes. She said if I didn't help her, she'd tell my wife about our relationship. Tell the dental board I'd been inappropriate with a patient's spouse. Cal stood up. How much money? Maybe $3,000 over the past year. All cash payments that I reported as services for her cousin's food truck business. The secret bank account made sense now. Lena had been using Dr. Morrow's guilt to launder money through his practice. I've been living with this guilt for months, Dr. Morrow said. When I saw you with Maggie the other day, I couldn't stay silent anymore. That little girl deserves a father who knows the truth. Cal headed for the door. Mr. Rourke, Dr. Morrow called. What are you going to do? Cal paused with his hand on the doorknob. What I should have done 10 years ago. Find out who my wife really is. Saturday morning, while Lena was at the grocery store, Cal searched her laptop. He'd watched her enter the password months ago. Maggie 2014, the year their daughter started kindergarten. The browser history revealed multiple visits to a family law website. Cache pages showed articles about fathers' rights, custody battles, and parental relocation laws. Cal found a folder labeled Legal Research containing downloaded documents about emergency custody orders and interstate jurisdiction. One document was particularly telling, challenging paternity claims in Michigan courts. His phone rang. Jasper. I did some digging on Lena's cousin, Jasper said without preamble. Trish Delgado runs a food truck in El Paso, but she's got other problems. What kind of problems? Money laundering for a local loan shark named Ernesto Vega. Small-scale stuff, but enough to get federal attention. Cal sat down heavily. How do you know this? I still have contacts from my Marine days. Some of them work border security now. Is Lena involved? Unknown. But if she's planning to take Maggie to El Paso, it might not be a vacation. After Jasper hung up, Cal continued searching Lena's laptop. In her email drafts, he found an unsent message to someone named Evie, possibly Ernesto Vega. The draft read, "Everything is ready. Will arrive next weekend with package. Confirm safe house arrangements." Cal screenshot the email and forwarded it to his own phone, then deleted the sent message from Lena's outbox. When Lena returned from shopping, she seemed excited. "I booked our flights," she announced. "We leave Friday evening, return Monday night. What about my job? I can't just take time off." "You're not coming," Lena said, unloading groceries. "Just me and Maggie. Girl time with cousin Trish." I don't think that's a good idea. Lena stopped unpacking and turned to face him. Why not? El Paso is a border town. There's drug violence, cartel activity. Trisha's lived there for 5 years. She's fine. Maggie's never been that far from home. She's 10 years old, not 2. Lena's voice carried an edge Cal hadn't heard before. I'm her mother. I can take her to visit family. The words, I'm her mother, hit Cal like a physical blow. Legally, Lena was right. Without proof of fraud or endangerment, she had every right to travel with Maggie. We'll discuss it later, Cal said. There's nothing to discuss. We're going. Sunday evening, Cal met Jasper at a bar on the outskirts of town. The place was nearly empty, country music playing softly from corner speakers. I need a lawyer, Cal said. Someone who specializes in family law. Jasper slid a business card across the table. Viola Nevis. She's a bulldog. Handles custody cases, parental fraud, the ugly stuff. Cal studied the card. The office was in downtown Grand Rapids. She's expensive, Jasper warned. But she wins. What do I tell her? Everything. The paternity test, the secret bank account, Dr. Morrow's confession, the El Paso connection. She'll know what's legally admissible. Cal pocketed the card. Lena, file for custody first. I could lose Maggie completely. Then don't let her file first. Monday morning, Cal called in sick to work and drove to Viola Nevis' office. The attorney was a small Brazilian woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and an expensive suit. Your situation is complicated, she said after Cal explained everything. But not impossible. What are my options? Emergency custody petition based on attempted parental alienation and endangerment. The secret financial activity suggests fraud. The El Paso connection suggests possible criminal involvement. How long would that take? If we file today, we could have a hearing by Thursday. Before her planned departure, Cal thought about Maggie, probably in school right now learning about fractions or state capitals. Completely unaware that her world was about to explode. What are the risks, he asked. If we lose, Lena could disappear with Maggie. If we win, you'll have temporary custody while the case proceeds. And the paternity issue? Viola leaned forward. Michigan law recognizes parental rights based on established relationships, not just biology. You've been Maggie's father for 10 years. That carries legal weight. File it, Cal said. Tuesday evening, Cal set up a small digital recorder in their bedroom. Michigan was a one-party consent state for recordings, meaning he didn't need Lena's permission to record their conversations. When Lena came home from work, she seemed agitated. Is everything okay? Cal asked. Dr. Morrow fired me today, she said, dropping her purse on the kitchen counter. What? What? He said the office was restructuring, eliminating my position. Cal feigned surprise. That's terrible. Did he give you any warning? None. Just walked in this morning and told me to clean out my desk. What about severance pay? Lena poured herself a glass of wine. 2 weeks. That's it. Maybe this is a sign we should postpone the El Paso trip. We're not postponing anything. Lena's voice was sharp. I need to get away from this place. Clear my head. With Maggie. She's my daughter, Cal. I can take her wherever I want. That night, Cal lay awake listening to Lena's breathing. The recorder hidden under his pillow captured every word of their argument. Tomorrow, he would file legal papers that would change their lives forever. But first, he needed to prepare Maggie for what was coming. Wednesday morning, Cal waited until Lena left for a dentist appointment before sitting down with Maggie. She was eating cereal and watching cartoons on her tablet. Sweetheart, we need to talk about something important. Maggie looked up, sensing his serious tone. Am I in trouble? No, baby. You're not in trouble. Cal turned off the tablet and sat beside her. Do you remember when Grandpa Joe explained how sometimes grown-ups have to make difficult decisions? Maggie nodded. Cal's father had died 2 years ago, but his wisdom about honesty and doing the right thing had stayed with the family. Sometimes people we love make choices that aren't good for us, Cal continued carefully. When that happens, other grown-ups like judges have to help decide what's best. Is this about Mom wanting to take me to El Paso? Cal was surprised by her perceptiveness. How did you know about that? I heard you arguing. You don't want us to go. I want you to be safe. That's the most important thing to me. Maggie studied his face with her unusual green-brown eyes. Are you and Mom getting divorced? The question pierced Cal's heart. I don't know yet. But no matter what happens, I love you more than anything in the world. That will never change. Even if I'm not really your daughter? Cal's blood went cold. What did you say? I heard Mom on the phone yesterday. She was talking to someone about blood tests and how you found out I'm not really yours. Cal pulled Maggie onto his lap, holding her tight. Listen to me very carefully. You are my daughter, not because of biology, but because of love. Because I've been here every day of your life. Because you're the best thing that ever happened to me. Maggie began to cry. I don't want you to stop being my dad. That's never going to happen, Cal promised. I'm going to make sure of it. Thursday morning, Cal and Viola Nevis arrived at the Kent County Family Court for the emergency hearing. Cal wore his best suit and carried a folder containing all the evidence they'd compiled. Judge Danielle Hightower was a serious woman in her 40s with graying hair and intelligent eyes. She reviewed their petition while they waited. This is quite an accusation, Mr. Rourke, Judge Hightower said. You're claiming your wife defrauded you about paternity and is planning to flee the state with your daughter. Yes, Your Honor. We have evidence supporting both claims. Viola presented the paternity test results, recordings of Lena's admissions, bank statements showing the secret account, and Dr. Morrow's sworn affidavit about the billing fraud. Where is Mrs. Rourke? Judge Hightower asked. She was served this morning, Viola explained. She's aware of a hearing, but chose not to attend. That's unusual. We believe she's already implemented her plan to leave the state, Your Honor. Judge Hightower studied the evidence for several minutes. Finally, she looked up. I'm granting temporary emergency custody to Mr. Rourke, effective immediately. Mrs. Rourke's access to the minor child will be supervised until a full hearing can be conducted. Cal felt his knees weaken with relief. Furthermore, the judge continued, I'm issuing an order preventing Mrs. Rourke from removing the child from Michigan or applying for any travel documents on the child's behalf. The full custody hearing was scheduled for the following Tuesday. Cal used the weekend to prepare with Viola, going over testimony and potential questions. Monday evening, Lena finally called. You son of a bitch, she said without preamble. You had me served at work. In front of everyone. Where are you? Cal asked. That's not your concern anymore. It is if you want to see Maggie. Lena was quiet for a moment. You can't keep her from me forever. I'm not trying to keep her from you. I'm trying to keep her safe. Safe from what? From her mother. From whatever you're involved in. The money laundering, the fake billing, your cousin's legal problems. You don't know what you're talking about. I know you've been lying to me for 10 years. I know Maggie isn't my biological daughter. I know you've been stealing money through Dr. Morrow's practice. Lena hung up. Tuesday morning, the courtroom was more crowded. Lena appeared with a lawyer Cal didn't recognize, a thin man in an ill-fitting suit who looked overwhelmed. Judge Hightower called the hearing to order. This is a custody determination hearing regarding the minor child Margaret Rourke. Lena's attorney spoke first, arguing that Cal was emotionally unstable and that removing Maggie from her mother's care was traumatic and unnecessary. My client admits there were problems in the marriage, the lawyer said. But Mr. Rourke's response has been extreme and vindictive. He's using the child as a weapon. Viola countered with their evidence. She presented the paternity test, financial records, and recordings of Lena's admissions. Mrs. Rourke has engaged in systematic fraud, Viola argued. She defrauded my client about paternity, stole money through a medical practice, and attempted to flee the state with the child when discovered. Dr. Morrow testified about his relationship with Lena and the billing fraud. His voice shook as he admitted his role, but his testimony was damaging to Lena's credibility. When called to testify, Lena denied planning to flee the state. I was taking my daughter to visit family, she said. That's not a crime. But you didn't tell your husband when you'd be returning, Viola pointed out. We were having marital problems. I needed space to think. Were you planning to return to Michigan? Lena hesitated. Eventually, when? I hadn't decided. Judge Hightower leaned forward. Mrs. Rourke, do you dispute the paternity test results? Biology isn't everything, Lena said. Cal has been a good father to Maggie. Do you dispute the evidence regarding the secret bank account and billing fraud? Lena's lawyer whispered something in her ear. I invoke my Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. Very well. Judge Hightower made notes on her legal pad. I'll hear closing arguments. After both sides presented their cases, Judge Hightower recessed to consider her decision. An hour later, she returned. This case involves serious allegations of fraud and deception that go to the heart of the family relationship, she began. While I understand that marital problems can lead to poor decisions, I cannot overlook evidence of systematic dishonesty and potential criminal activity. Cal held his breath. I'm awarding temporary full custody to Mr. Rourke. Mrs. Rourke will have supervised visitation rights pending resolution of the criminal investigation into her financial activities. Furthermore, I'm freezing all bank accounts associated with Mrs. Rourke pending a full financial audit. Lena stood up abruptly. This is ridiculous. You're destroying a family based on lies. Mrs. Rourke, Judge Hightower said firmly, I suggest you focus on cooperating with the ongoing investigation. Your cooperation will be considered when determining permanent custody arrangements. Wednesday afternoon, Cal was teaching his woodshop class when the school's secretary knocked on the door. Mr. Rourke, there's a call for you in the office. They said it was urgent. Cal left his students with instructions to work on their current projects and hurried to the main office. Jasper was on the phone, his voice tense. Lena tried to take Maggie during her supervised visit, Jasper said without preamble. The social worker called me when she couldn't reach you. Cal's hands went cold. Where are they now? I intercepted them at the McDonald's on 28th Street. Lena had a car packed with suitcases. Is Maggie okay? She's fine. Scared, but fine. The social worker has her now. Where's Lena? Being arrested for custodial interference. The police are booking her now. Cal sank into the secretary's chair. I'll be right there. At the police station, Cal found Maggie in a victim services office with a kind woman named Beth who specialized in family cases. Daddy! Maggie ran into his arms. I'm sorry, sweetheart. Are you hurt? Mom said we were going to get ice cream, but then she started driving toward the highway. When I asked where we were going, she said it was a surprise. Cal held her tight, imagining how frightened she must have been. The social worker tried to stop her. Maggie continued. Mom got really angry and started yelling. Then Uncle Jasper showed up. What did Uncle Jasper do? He just stood in front of the car and told Mom to turn off the engine. He wasn't mean or anything, but his voice was scary, like when he was in the Marines. Cal looked through the office window and saw Jasper talking to a police officer. His brother had probably saved Maggie's life. That evening, after Maggie was safely home and in bed, Cal began the grim task of packing Lena's belongings. He didn't want his daughter to see her mother's things scattered around the house. In Lena's closet, while boxing up shoes, Cal found something unusual. A small flip phone was hidden inside an old boot, taped to the inner sole. The phone was password protected, but Cal recognized the brand. It was an older model, the kind people used when they wanted to avoid tracking, that he called Viola Nevis. Can you help me access this phone legally? He asked. Bring it to my office tomorrow morning. I'll have a tech expert examine it. The next afternoon, Viola called with disturbing news. The phone contains text conversations in Spanish, she said. My translator found references to someone named Emilio and discussions about relocating to El Paso with the package. Package? We believe it refers to Maggie. But there's more. The FBI ran the phone number through their database. This Emilio character is Emilio Vega, wanted in connection with a 2012 bank robbery in Lubbock, Texas. Cal's head spun. You think he's Maggie's father? It's possible. The timeline fits. The FBI wants to interview you about the phone and Lena's planned trip to El Paso. What does this mean for the custody case? It means Lena was potentially planning to deliver Maggie to a federal fugitive. That's kidnapping, not just custody interference. The final custody hearing took place 3 weeks later. Lena appeared in handcuffs, wearing an orange jail jumpsuit. Her public defender looked defeated before the hearing even began. The FBI agent testified about the hidden phone and its contents. The text messages revealed Lena's plan to bring Maggie to El Paso, where Emilio Vega would take custody of his daughter and disappear deeper into Mexico. Doctor Morrow testified that he'd conducted a DNA test using samples from Maggie and Emilio Vega, obtained from FBI evidence. The results confirmed Vega was Maggie's biological father. Mrs. Rourke engaged in a decade-long deception, Viola argued in her closing statement. She defrauded my client about paternity, stole money to fund her criminal activities, and attempted to deliver a child to a federal fugitive. This goes far beyond marital problems. Lena's public defender argued for leniency, claiming she was a victim of Emilio's manipulation. Judge Hightower was not sympathetic. Mrs. Rourke, your actions endangered a child and violated the trust that forms the foundation of family relationships. You've shown no remorse and demonstrated that you pose a continuing threat to the child's welfare. I hereby terminate your parental rights to Margaret Rourke. Mr. Rourke's petition for formal adoption is granted. Mrs. Rourke, you'll have no further contact with the child. As the bailiff led Lena away, she turned to look at Cal one last time. Her face showed no emotion, no regret, just cold calculation. Cal didn't look back. Outside the courthouse, Maggie waited with Jasper. She ran to Cal as he emerged. Is it over? She asked. Yes, sweetheart. It's over. Am I really your daughter now? Legally. Cal knelt down to her level. You've always been my daughter. Now it's just official. The community woodshop in Traverse City hummed with purposeful activity on a Saturday morning in late fall. Cal supervised 3 teenagers working on a cabinet project while Maggie helped organize tools in the storage room. The familiar smells of fresh-cut pine and wood stain filled the air, creating an atmosphere of productivity and hope. They'd moved north 6 months after the trial, seeking a fresh start away from the painful memories of Grand Rapids. Cal's new job teaching disadvantaged youth through woodworking programs was fulfilling in ways his old position never was. These kids needed more than just technical skills. They needed to believe in their ability to create something beautiful and lasting. Dad, Mrs. Patterson called. Maggie announced, emerging from the storage room with her arms full of sandpaper. She wants to know if we can build birdhouses for the school fundraiser. They need 20 of them. What do you think? Cal asked, watching her consider the question with the same serious expression she'd worn since she was little. Can we handle 20 birdhouses by next month? Maggie was now 11, and the past year had transformed her from a confused, frightened child into a confident young woman who took pride in helping with the woodshop projects. She'd learned to use basic tools safely and had developed an eye for craftsmanship that reminded Cal of his own father. If Uncle Jasper helps this weekend, we can definitely do it, she decided with characteristic determination. We could use the assembly line method you taught me. Cut all the pieces first, then sand them, then assemble. Cal smiled at her practical approach. That's good thinking. We'll make it a team project. Jasper visited every few weeks, usually staying for a long weekend. The brothers had grown even closer through the ordeal with Lena, and Jasper had become a permanent fixture in Maggie's life. He'd officially become her godfather in the legal sense, giving him legal standing to care for her if anything ever happened to Cal. The drive back to their small house near downtown Traverse City gave Cal time to reflect on how much their lives had changed. The house was smaller than their old place in Grand Rapids, but it felt more like home. Maggie had her own room overlooking Lake Michigan, and Cal had converted the basement into a workshop where he built custom furniture in the evenings. That evening, as Cal tucked Maggie in a bed under quilts his grandmother had made decades ago, she asked the question that still occasionally surfaced, though less frequently now. Do you ever think about her? Cal knew she meant Lena, though they rarely spoke her name anymore. The trial had been covered extensively in local newspapers, and while Cal had tried to shield Maggie from the worst details, she understood the basic facts about her mother's deception and criminal activities. Sometimes, Cal admitted, settling into the chair beside her bed that had become their traditional spot for bedtime conversations. I think about the person I thought she was, the mother I believed you had. Do you miss her? Cal considered his answer carefully, as he always did when Maggie asked difficult questions. She deserved honesty, but delivered in a way she could understand and accept. I miss the idea of her, the family I thought we were, when everything seemed simple and happy. But I don't miss the lies, and I don't miss the fear of not knowing what was real. Maggie nodded thoughtfully, pulling the quilts up to her chin. I'm glad you found out the truth, even though it was scary. Why? Because now I know for sure that you chose to be my dad. You didn't have to keep me after you found out about the blood test stuff, but you did. That makes it more special, not less. Cal felt his throat tighten with emotion. Maggie, you need to understand something. You weren't just something I kept. You're the best thing that ever happened to me. From the moment you were born, you've been mine in every way that matters. I know. Her voice was getting sleepy. And your mind, too. As Cal turned off her bedroom light, Maggie called out one more time. Thank you for never leaving. Cal paused in the doorway, remembering all the times over the past year when he'd been tempted to give up, to let the legal system handle everything while he tried to rebuild his life alone. But looking at Maggie now, safe and loved in her own bed, he knew he'd made the right choice at every step. I don't leave what's mine. Ever. Walking downstairs to his own workshop, Cal reflected on the journey that had brought them to this point. The truth had been painful, devastating in ways he was still processing, but it had also been liberating. He and Maggie had built something stronger and more honest from the broken pieces of their old life. Outside, the first snow of the season was beginning to fall on the streets of Traverse City, covering the world in a clean white blanket. Inside their warm house, father and daughter were finally home, not just in geography, but in the deeper sense of belonging that comes from truth, love, and the unbreakable bonds of chosen family.